There's a town in Florida where the Domino's pizza billionaire built an entire Catholic city from scratch, and there's not a single Domino's in it. That's not even the strangest thing I found. I've been road tripping through Florida's most bizarre towns for months now, sleeping in motels that charge by the hour and eating gas station Cuban sandwiches, and I put together 10 places that flat out defy logic until you hear the story behind them. A circus sideshow village where the fire chief was 8 feet tall and elephants lived in people's front yards. A post office the size of a bathroom stall where alligators sunbathe in the parking lot. A mail order swamp that became the foreclosure capital of America, and a Disney controlled city with almost no real residents where every election is decided before the ballots are even printed. I drove to all 10 of these places, walked the streets, talked to locals. And by the end, I stopped being surprised and started being genuinely concerned. Because once you understand why these towns exist, Florida stops being confusing and starts being unsettling. Like this video, if you enjoy questioning everything about Florida. Number 10 starts now. Number 10, 2 Egg. When I first pulled up to this place, I thought my GPS was broken. There's a road sign in the Florida Panhandle, about an hour west of Tallahassee, that says 2 Egg in official state highway lettering. That's the name. That is the actual government-recognized name of this community in Jackson County. And the origin story is exactly as ridiculous as you're hoping. During the Great Depression, cash basically stopped existing in rural Florida. People bartered for everything. And according to local historian and longtime 2 Egg businessman John Henry Pittman, 2 young boys kept walking into the Lawrence grocery to trade 2 eggs for sugar and other staples. Every single time. Same boys, same 2 eggs, same transaction. Traveling salesmen passing through started calling the place the 2 Egg store. The name stuck. The post office adopted it. And by 1941, the state of Florida put it on the highway map like it was perfectly normal. The town itself is a blink-and-miss-it crossroads surrounded by deep backwoods and Spanish moss. Originally, it was a lumber camp called Allison, which is a perfectly fine name that nobody remembers. Just down the road sits the haunted Bellamy Bridge, where locals swear the ghost of Elizabeth Bellamy still wanders the trail at night, engulfed in flames. Oscar-winning actress Faye Dunaway grew up just north of here, near Bascom, which is somehow a less interesting fact than the egg thing. The whole place feels frozen in time. Weathered porch boards, hand-painted signs, dirt roads fading into pine forest, and absolutely zero indication that you're standing in one of the most oddly named towns in America. There's no welcome center, no gift shop selling egg-themed merch. Just a crossroads that the state of Florida decided to immortalize based on a grocery store nickname from the 1930s. It's named after the exact change 2 kids used to buy sugar. And honestly, that might be the most Florida origin story I've ever heard. Although, as we're about to find out, the competition for that title is fierce. Number 9, Ochopee. I almost drove past this one on the Tamiami Trail between Naples and Miami, and I mean that literally. The entire United States Postal Service outpost in Ochopee, Florida, is a white shed that measures 61.3 square feet. According to the USPS itself, it is the smallest post office in the United States. The building is roughly 8 feet 4 inches by 7 feet 3 inches. It has about 40 P.O. boxes, no bathroom, and 1 clerk who serves a mail route stretching across 3 counties and roughly 170 miles. The hamlet around it has a population you can count on your fingers, and the zip code, 34141, is apparently prized by stamp collectors worldwide. So how did this happen? In 1953, a fire destroyed Ochopee's general store and post office. Postmaster Sidney Brown needed a building immediately, so he grabbed the nearest thing standing, a tiny irrigation pipe storage shed belonging to the J.T. Gaunt Company, tomato farm, and turned it into a functioning federal post office. That was over 70 years ago. Nobody ever replaced it. When I visited, an alligator was sunbathing about 15 feet from the front door, which felt extremely on-brand. A line of tourists was waiting to take photos with this little white shed that sits dwarfed by cypress swamp and Everglades sky. The clerk inside seemed completely unfazed by all of it. The gator, the tourists. The fact that she was running a federal mail operation out of something smaller than most walk-in closets. Just another Tuesday on the Tamiami Trail. It's a tomato farm tool shed that's been processing United States mail since Eisenhower was president. And the government just went with it. 70 years and counting, nobody has ever proposed building something bigger. At this point, I think the shed has seniority. Number 8. Cassadaga. Less than an hour from Disney World, there's a village where the main industry is talking to dead people. No traffic lights, no cemetery. Just mediums, healers, and a hotel that's reportedly haunted. When I first walked through Cassadaga, the oak canopy was so thick with Spanish moss it felt like stepping into a completely different century. Cottages with psychic reading signs lined the narrow streets. Prayer flags hung from porches. The whole place vibrated with this strange, quiet energy that I genuinely was not expecting from Central Florida. The Southern Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp Meeting Association was chartered in December 1894, but the town's origin goes back further. In 1875, a New York trance medium named George P. Colby claimed his spirit guide, an entity called Seneca, directed him to travel to this exact spot in Florida and build a spiritualist community. He walked into the subtropical swamp, found the land, and eventually deeded 35 acres to the association in January 1895. Colby died in 1933. His camp never did. Today, Cassadaga is a 57-acre National Register Historic District with about 70 full-time residents. The real kicker is what it takes to practice here. The camp has around 43 certified mediums, and certification requires 4 to 6 years of formal study. Tarot cards are actually banned for mediums working within the official camp limits. The Cassadaga Hotel, built in the 1920s, draws ghost hunters from across the country. Locals point tourists toward the ferry trail, a wooded path covered in makeshift altars. A 19th century medium's ghost told him exactly where to build it. And people have been talking to the dead there ever since. The wildest part? It's thriving. In a state full of strip malls and gated communities, this tiny spiritualist camp from 1894 is still standing, still operating, and still certifying new mediums. Some of the cottages have waiting lists for readings that stretch weeks out. I couldn't get an appointment the day I showed up. Apparently the spirits are booked solid. Number 7, Ave Maria. Picture this. You're driving through Collier County, deep in former tomato farmland on the edge of the Everglades, and suddenly a colossal exposed steel church rises from the flat horizon like a spaceship landed in a crop field. Welcome to Ave Maria, the town that Domino's Pizza built. After Tom Monahan sold Domino's for a reported $1 billion in 1998, he decided his next project would be building an entire Catholic university and surrounding town from scratch. He partnered with Barron Collier Companies, invested around $250 million, and in 2005, Ave Maria was founded. The church facade features a 30-foot-tall Annunciation sculpture by Hungarian sculptor Martin Varro, reportedly weighing around 70 tons. When the town first opened in 2007, Monahan announced that you wouldn't be able to buy contraception or pornography anywhere in Ave Maria. That declaration lasted about 5 minutes. Governor Jeb Bush's office and the ACLU raised immediate legal objections, and the restrictions were scaled back to apply only to the university itself. By 2020, the population had reached 6,242 people, making it one of the fastest growing communities in the country, founded in the 21st century. The town center is pastel and walkable, with Catholic street names and that enormous oratory dominating the skyline. It feels like a theme park for a very specific audience, and the punchline that I confirmed with my own eyes: there is no Domino's Pizza in Ave Maria. The nearest one is in Naples. The pizza guy built an entire town and didn't put his own restaurant in it. I asked a couple walking through the town center if they thought that was funny. They looked at me like I was the weird one, which, standing in a billionaire's private Catholic city built on tomato fields in the Everglades, I suppose I was. One more thing. Florida created the Ave Maria Stewardship Community District in 2004, a special purpose government that gave landowners, rather than ordinary voters, control over the town. So the man who invented the 30 minutes or less delivery guarantee also invented a town where the residents don't fully control their own government. Florida. If you're still watching, you already know this channel covers the wildest, most honest takes on real estate and American living you'll find anywhere on YouTube. We don't sugarcoat anything. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next week, because the content only gets more unhinged from here. Trust me. Number 6. Gibsonton. When I first heard about Gibsonton, I thought someone was messing with me. A town south of Tampa where the fire chief was 8 feet 4 inches tall, a police deputy was a little person, conjoined twins ran a fruit stand, and elephants lived in people's front yards. All of it was real. Starting in the 1920s and booming through the 1940s, carnival and circus sideshow performers made Gibsonton their winter home. They called it Gibtown. The reasons were practical: warm climate, proximity to the Ringling and Sarasota Circus wintering grounds, and zoning laws that were unlike anywhere else in the country. Gibsonton actually had special zoning that allowed residents to keep circus animals and carnival rides on residential property. The legends are specific. Altomani, who stood 8 feet 4 inches, married Jeannie, the half-woman, who was about 2.5 feet tall. Together, they ran Giant's Fish Camp on the Alafia River. The local post office installed a special low counter for little people, reportedly the first of its kind in the United States. Performers would tour the country in summer, then come home to Gibsonton for winter, and the whole community understood each other in a way the rest of America never did. But Gibtown had a dark chapter. Grady Lobster Boy Styles, a performer born with a condition that fused his fingers into claw-like appendages, was shot dead in his Gibsonton trailer on November 29, 1992. He was killed by 17-year-old sideshow performer Chris Wyant, who had been hired for $1,500 by Styles' own wife and stepson. Wyant received 27 years. The case made national news and became one of the most infamous crimes in Florida carnival history. Today, the International Independent Showmen's Association Museum sits on over 52,000 square feet in Gibsonton, housing one of the first Ferris wheels built in the United States. You can still see the faded painted show fronts and the giant boot monument to Altomani on US 41. The mobile homes along Bullfrog Creek are quieter now. Most of the old performers are gone, but the zoning laws that welcomed them still on the books. Gibsonton was America's off-season green room for the entire circus industry, and for decades it was one of the only places in the country where sideshow performers could live without being stared at. Because in Gibtown, everybody was different. That was the whole point. Number 5, Cape Coral. Here's a sentence that should not be true. A city in southwest Florida has over 400 miles of navigable canals. That's more than Venice, Italy. 15 times more according to the city itself. And the whole thing was built by two brothers who made their fortune selling hair-tonic on television. When I drove through Cape Coral for the first time, the aerial view from the bridge looked like someone had taken a ruler and carved a grid directly into the earth. Because that's essentially what happened. In 1957, Jack and Leonard Rosen, two Baltimore brothers who'd gotten rich selling Charles Antel hair products through early TV infomercials, bought a remote peninsula called Redfish Point. They paid roughly $678,000 for 103 square miles of mosquito-infested swamp. Then they formed Gulf American Land Corporation and started dredging. The plan was beautifully insane. Dig hundreds of miles of canals, use the dirt to raise the lots above the flood line to about 5.5 feet, and sell home sites to buyers across the country for $10 down and $10 a month. Salesmen flew prospective buyers over the raw land in Cessnas and had them drop flour sack markers on the lots they wanted. That's how you bought property in Cape Coral. From an airplane over a swamp, no walking the lot, no checking the soil, no asking where the nearest grocery store was. You just chucked a bag of flour out of a moving aircraft and that patch of mosquito marsh became yours. The problem? The Rosens never got state permits for the dredging. That omission helped bankrupt Gulf American by 1975. But by then, people had already moved in. The canals had been dug, the houses were going up, and an entire city had materialized out of what was essentially a late-night infomercial pitch applied to real estate. By 2020, Cape Coral's population had reached about 194,000. The city now hosts the largest population of burrowing owls in Florida, its official city bird, and the backyards are lined with boat docks and seawalls crawling with iguanas. Some of those original $10 lots are now worth hundreds of thousands. Nobody buying them from an airplane in 1958 could have imagined that. Two hair products salesmen looked at a mosquito swamp and said, "What if Venice but Florida?" And somehow, against all logic, it worked. Number 4, Indian Creek. There's an island in Miami-Dade County with about 41 homes, fewer than 90 residents, and its own full police department of roughly 11 officers. That works out to approximately 1 cop for every 8 people. It's called Indian Creek, and the locals call it the Billionaire Bunker. When I tried to visit Indian Creek, I made it about halfway across the single 2-lane bridge before a police officer in a golf cart politely explained that I was not going any further. The island is connected to Surfside by that one guarded bridge. That's it. One way in, one way out. And someone is always watching. Wealthy Midwestern businessmen bought this mangrove island during the 1920s and 1930s and converted it into an exclusive enclave wrapped around a country club and golf course. In 1939, they incorporated it as a village, which gave them the legal authority to run their own government, their own police force, and their own rules. The entire island is basically a private country club that turned itself into a country. Residents have included Jeff Bezos, Tom Brady, Carly Khan, Julio Iglesias, Ivanka Trump, and Jared Kushner. Kushner has been listed as a village council member. The mega mansions are walled off from every angle. Private security boats patrol the water. And get this, as of recent reports, the 86-person enclave was still running on septic systems, with a new sewer line not expected to be fully connected until 2028. Nearly 90 people, 11 cops, billion-dollar homes, septic tanks. The whole island is a private country club that incorporated itself into a municipality so it could legally keep everyone else out. And the septic tank detail really got me. You'd think with that kind of money, basic plumbing would be a given, but Indian Creek proves that wealth and infrastructure don't always go together. Even in a place where the average home costs more than a regular person will earn in 10 lifetimes, the sewage system is something you'd find at a lakeside cabin. Florida, where the richest zip code in the county still hasn't figured out indoor plumbing. Number 3, Bay Lake. I need you to pay attention to this one because it's genuinely one of the wildest municipal arrangements in the United States. Bay Lake, Florida, is an incorporated city. It contains the entire Magic Kingdom, and its population is a handful of carefully selected Disney employees who live in company-controlled mobile homes on a street called Bay Court. They vote in municipal elections, and they vote exactly the way the company needs them to. When Walt Disney started secretly buying up Central Florida land in the 1960s through shell companies, he had a vision that went way beyond a theme park. He wanted to run his own government, no county zoning boards, no outside building inspectors, complete control, and Florida gave it to him. Governor Claude Kirk Jr. signed the Reedy Creek Improvement Act on May 12, 1967, creating a special district and incorporating the cities of Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista. Governing power was tied to land ownership, with 1 vote per acre. So Disney housed a small number of loyal employees there, and senior staff held 5-acre parcels specifically to wield voting power. The company could approve its own building permits, run its own fire department, and inspect its own 189-foot fiberglass castle without any county authority involved. It gets better. When Disney built the town of Celebration in the 1990s, they deliberately de-annexed it from Bay Lake in the district in 1994. Why? Because if actual families moved in and became legal residents, they could vote. And Disney could not have that. Author Richard Fogelsong documented the whole arrangement in his book about Disney's relationship with Florida government. For over 50 years, this setup ran without a hitch. Disney inspected its own buildings, approved its own permits, ran its own fire department. The 189-foot fiberglass Cinderella castle? No county inspector ever signed off on it. Disney signed off on itself. Then in 2023, the arrangement finally cracked. Governor Ron DeSantis and Disney got into a public feud over Florida's Parental Rights and Education Act. DeSantis retaliated by renaming the district the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District and replacing Disney's hand-picked board with state appointees. For the first time in decades, someone else was sitting at the controls. The people voting in Bay Lake work for Mickey Mouse. And for over half a century, that was always the plan. Whether it stays that way is now an open question. Number 2, Lehigh Acres. This one made me genuinely sad when I drove through it. Lehigh Acres sits east of Fort Myers, and from the air, it looks like someone dropped a massive street grid onto the Florida wilderness and then forgot about it. Roads stretching in perfect parallels for miles, intersecting at precise right angles, and then just stopping. Dead-ending into palmetto scrub where feral pigs cross 4-lane boulevards and ospreys nest on cell towers. Entire blocks with a single house surrounded by 15 overgrown jungle lots. In the mid-1950s, Chicago businessman Lee Ratner bought 18,000 acres as a cattle ranch tax shelter he called the Lucky Lee Ranch. Then he and ad executive Gerald Gould had an idea. They subdivided the land into roughly 135,000 individual lots and sold them sight unseen by mail for $10 down and $10 a month. Here's the part that makes your jaw drop. They never expected anyone to actually move there. It was a paper land scheme. So they skipped drainage, they skipped utilities, they skipped commercial zoning. They skipped any planning for jobs, schools, or infrastructure. Just lots on paper, money in the bank. But people did move there. And during the mid-2000s housing boom, construction exploded. More than 7,500 homes went up in 2006 alone, more than in the previous 50 years combined. Then the market collapsed. Lehigh Acres became ground zero of the 2008 foreclosure crisis. Home prices in the Fort Myers area crashed from a peak of about $322,000 to roughly $107,000. Unemployment hit 14%. The community was declared blighted by Lee County back in 1992, and it still hasn't incorporated as a city. Many of the people who inherited those original mail-order lots discovered they were worth less than the back taxes owed on them. The county needed an estimated $11 million just to repave the neglected roads. Driving through the grid today, you pass block after block of faded foreclosure signs, overgrown lots reclaimed by jungle, and the occasional, beautiful home standing completely alone in a sea of emptiness. It feels like visiting a city that was sketched on paper, but never fully rendered in real life. Lehigh Acres is a place that was never supposed to be lived in. It was a tax dodge with streets, and tens of thousands of people built their lives on it anyway. That's the version of the American dream nobody puts on a postcard. And smash that like button before number 1. Because this final town is the biggest, strangest, and most mind-bending place on this entire list. If you thought a Billionaire Island and a Disney puppet city were wild, you are not ready for what's coming. Number 1. The Villages. When I first drove into the Villages, I thought I'd accidentally entered a parallel universe. Golf carts were everywhere. Not as a novelty, as the primary mode of transportation. Rivers of them flowing through cart-only tunnels under major highways, crossing dedicated bridges, pulling into Starbucks drive-thrus. The town. Squares looked like something out of a 1950s movie set. Spanish Springs, Lake Sumter Landing, all of it designed to feel like a nostalgic small-town America that never actually existed. And that last part is literal. The plaques around town describe the area's rich heritage, its founding stories, its historical characters, all fabricated. The Villages invented its own past. Those plaques describe a history that never happened, put up to sell a feeling. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the Wildwood and Villages metro area reached about 151,000 residents in 2023, growing nearly 5% in a single year and making it the fastest growing metro in the entire country. It has held that title multiple years running. The community spans Sumter, Lake, and Marion counties across roughly 57 square miles. That's larger than Manhattan. The origin story is pure Florida. It started in the 1960s when Michigan businessman Harold Schwartz began selling Florida land by mail order. When a 1968 federal law banned mail order land sales, he and partner Al Tarson pivoted to a struggling mobile home park called Orange Blossom Gardens. Schwartz's son, H. Gary Morse, took over in the 1980s and transformed it into what he essentially pitched as Disney World for retirees. Golf courses, entertainment plazas, manufactured town squares with free nightly live music, the numbers are staggering. Over 100 miles of golf cart paths with dedicated tunnels and bridges crossing US 441 and the Florida Turnpike. The Guinness World Record for the largest golf cart parade, with over 3,300 carts participating in September 2005, an event that raised nearly $30,000 for charity. Almost no children. Registered Republicans outnumber Democrats roughly 2-1, making it one of the most reliable campaign stops in American politics. Every major candidate swings through. As of 2018, it had the largest veteran population of any non-military base community in the entire United States. I walked through the Spanish Springs Town Square on a Tuesday evening. A cover band was playing on the gazebo stage. Free. No tickets, just hundreds of retirees in golf carts sipping drinks dancing in the plaza. It looked like a movie set, and that's the thing, it is a movie set. The architecture is designed to evoke a charming southern town from the 1950s. The restaurants have names that sound like they've been there for generations. The plaques tell stories of founding families and historic events. None of it is real. The families are invented. The events never happened. The town squares were built in the 1990s and 2000s and then given a backstory. The man behind the transformation, H. Gary Morse, understood something that most developers miss. People don't just buy homes, they buy stories. They buy belonging. And if the story doesn't exist yet, you can build one. Morse sold a lifestyle so effectively that people uprooted their entire lives to move to a community centered around golf, entertainment, and the comforting illusion of a small-town past. And beneath all the pastel houses and perfectly manicured greens, the reality check. It's not an old town. It's not a historic community. It's a mobile home park that a family of Michigan land developers turned into a self-contained retirement metropolis the size of a major city. They built the buildings first and invented the history second. And over 150,000 people moved in anyway. That is the Villages. And that is Florida. So there you have it. 10 towns in this state that absolutely should not make sense, and now you know exactly why they do. Florida is built on swamp, ambition, con men, dreamers, and zoning laws that would make your head spin. Every one of these places started as someone's wild idea. Some of those ideas turned into communities, some turned into cautionary tales, most turned into both. If you made it this far, you're one of us. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the strangest, most honest corners of American living. Drop a comment telling me which town blew your mind the hardest. I'll see you in the next one.